Ferrari just got exposed, and the FIA has the data to prove it. What you're about to hear completely changes how you should see Ferrari's performance in Japan. Because this is not about a bad session. It's not about driver mistakes. This is something much bigger. Something structural. Something they cannot fix overnight. On paper, Ferrari looks competitive. Top 6. Close gaps. Solid pace. But here's the part almost nobody noticed. They are losing nearly half a second per lap in a way that doesn't show on the timing screen. And once you see where that time disappears, you can't unsee it. The FIA has now confirmed exactly what's happening inside the SF26 and explains why Ferrari looks fast, but can't actually fight. Why they shine in some corners, then completely collapse in others. And why, if nothing changes, this weekend might already be decided. But here's the twist. Because hidden inside this problem, there's one factor that could flip everything on Sunday. And almost nobody's talking about it. Stay with me, and you'll understand why Ferrari is both closer than it looks and further than anyone expected. Subscribe now, because the final piece of this story changes everything. At first, everything looked normal. That's what made it dangerous. Ferrari rolled out in Suzuka, and within minutes, the car looked alive, responsive, sharp, confident through the most technical corners on the calendar. Leclerc attacked the S-curves with precision. No hesitation, no instability. And Hamilton, even after losing valuable track time early on, still managed to extract pace almost immediately. From the outside, it felt like Ferrari had arrived prepared. Not guessing, not experimenting, prepared. And that's exactly why people started asking the wrong question. Are Ferrari closer than we thought? But that's not the question that matters. Because the Real story was never about how fast they looked. It was about where they were fast. And more importantly, where they weren't. This is where things start to shift. Because if you isolate the middle sector, Ferrari looks like a top team, almost equal to Mercedes. Smooth direction changes, strong front-end grip, controlled rear stability. Everything you want in Suzuka's most demanding section. And for a moment, you start to believe it. You start to think this could be the weekend. But then comes the part most people ignore. The part that doesn't look dramatic. The part that doesn't create headlines. The exits. The long accelerations, the moments right after the corners where lap time is either built or completely destroyed. And this is where Ferrari begins to disappear. Not instantly, subtly, a few kilometers per hour here. A slight delay in acceleration there. Nothing obvious, nothing shocking, but over an entire lap, it becomes everything. And here's where it gets even more interesting, because this isn't new. Ferrari already saw this pattern in Australia. They saw it again in China. But in Suzuka, it becomes impossible to hide, because this track doesn't forgive inefficiency. It amplifies it. Every long corner, every extended throttle phase, every second you spend asking the car for energy and not getting enough back. That's when the gap starts to grow. And the most dangerous part? Drivers can feel it, but they can't fix it. Leclerc tried different lines, different entry speeds, even experimented with how he carried momentum into spoon. Hamilton adjusted deployment, adapted his driving style, but the results stayed the same, which leads to a very uncomfortable realization. This isn't a setup issue. This isn't something you tune out between sessions. This is something built into the car. And at this point in the weekend, Ferrari already knew it. They just hadn't said out loud yet. Because once you admit that, everything else changes. And this is where Ferrari made a decision that tells you everything. Not about their confidence, but about their fear. Because going into FP2, they didn't just continue the program. They changed direction, and not in a small way. In a way that revealed they were chasing something they couldn't fully control. The focus shifted to one key element: energy deployment, not raw speed, not balance, energy. Because internally, Ferrari already had the data. They knew the car was running out of usable power too early in the lap. They knew the drop wasn't random. It was consistent, predictable, repeatable. And that's the worst kind of problem. Because if it's predictable, your rivals can exploit it. So they tried to fight it. They pushed the system harder. They adjusted harvesting points. They experimented with how the battery released energy across the lap. Small changes, but each one with risk. Because when you push energy systems to the limit, you don't just gain performance, you destabilize the entire car. And that's exactly what started to happen. The balance began to shift in ways that weren't there in FP1. Corner entry felt different. Braking zones became less predictable, especially into turn 1, that first heavy braking point after the main straight, one of the most sensitive areas on the entire track. Drivers rely on consistency there, absolute trust in the car. And suddenly, that trust wasn't complete anymore. Leclerc felt it first. He reported discomfort, not panic, not loss of control, but something worse, uncertainty, because when a driver says the car feels off under braking, it means the balance is shifting at the worst possible moment, right when commitment matters most. And here's where things connect, because this instability wasn't coming from nowhere. It was directly linked to Ferrari's biggest gamble of the weekend, the new rear wing concept, the one designed to reduce drag, the one meant to recover what they were losing on the straights. On paper, it was clever, aggressive, potentially a breakthrough, but in reality, it introduced a new variable, a transition from low drag to high downforce, and that transition was not smooth enough. So now Ferrari had two problems, one they already knew, and one they had just created: less energy than their rivals, and less stability when trying to compensate for it. And at that moment, everything becomes a trade-off. Do you chase performance and risk losing control? Or do you protect the car and accept that you're not fast enough? Ferrari chose safety. They stepped back. They removed the aggressive configuration. They went back to something predictable, something stable, but also something limited. And this is the part most people miss completely. Because when Ferrari went back to a safer setup, their lap times didn't collapse. They stayed relatively competitive, still inside the top group, which creates a very misleading picture. It makes it look like Ferrari is in the fight. But they're not pushing the limit anymore. They're managing it, containing it, and that changes the entire interpretation of their performance. Because now the question is no longer, how fast is Ferrari? The real question becomes, how much are they holding back? Because they know what happens if they don't. And this is where the FIA's role becomes impossible to ignore. Because while Ferrari was trying to manage the symptoms, the FIA was analyzing the cause through energy data, through deployment patterns, through telemetry that teams cannot hide. And what they found confirms something Ferrari cannot escape. But that confirmation goes even deeper than just performance, because it doesn't only explain what's happening on track, it explains what's going to happen next. And this is the moment where everything stops being speculation and becomes fact. Because while Ferrari was still trying to understand the limits of their own car, the FIA already had a clear picture. Not opinions, not assumptions, data, cold, precise, unavoidable data, energy traces, deployment curves, recovery efficiency, every lap, every throttle input, every loss of power, recorded, measured, compared. And what that data revealed is exactly what many engineers feared but couldn't prove publicly. Ferrari is not just slightly behind. They are operating under a completely different energy window. And that changes how the entire car behaves. Because in modern Formula One, performance is not just about speed. It's about continuity, the ability to deliver power, again and again and again, without interruption. Mercedes can do that. McLaren is getting very close to doing that. Ferrari can't, not consistently. And the FIA's analysis shows it clearly. There is a precise point in every lap where Ferrari's system drops below optimal deployment. Not randomly, at the same place, every time, which means rivals don't even need to guess anymore. They know exactly where Ferrari becomes vulnerable. And once your weakness becomes predictable, it becomes attackable. This is no longer just a performance gap. It's a strategic target. Drivers behind Ferrari will know when to push, when to stay close, when to strike, because they know that at a certain point on the track, Ferrari will not be able to defend at full power. And here's where the situation becomes even more uncomfortable, because the FIA didn't flag this as illegal. There's no violation, no penalty. Everything is within the rules. But that's exactly the problem, because if it were illegal, you could fix it quickly. You could remove it, replace it, move on. But this is legal, which means it's intentional, which means it's part of the design philosophy of the SF26. And design philosophy doesn't change during a race weekend. It doesn't change between qualifying and Sunday. It defines the car. So now Ferrari is trapped in a very specific reality. They have a car that is excellent in controlled conditions, strong in technical sectors, efficient with tires, but fundamentally limited in sustained energy delivery. And Suzuka, is the worst possible place to hide that. Because Suzuka doesn't give you brakes. It doesn't give you resets. It keeps asking the same question, corner after corner, lap after lap. Do you have enough energy? And Ferrari's answer right now is no, not for the whole lap, not when it matters most. And this leads to the final, unavoidable shift in perspective. Because up until now, people were asking if Ferrari could fight for the win. Now the question is completely different. Can Ferrari even defend their position once the race begins to unfold? Because over one lap, you can hide a weakness, you can manage it, you can mask it with precision, but over a full race distance, it comes back again and again and again. And that's where everything Ferrari showed on Friday starts to mean something very different. Not a sign of potential, but a warning, a very clear one. Because if the FIA is right, and all the data says they are, then what we saw in practice was not Ferrari holding something back. It was Ferrari already operating at the edge, trying to survive a problem they cannot solve this weekend. And the only thing left to understand now is whether that weakness will slowly destroy their race, or create an opportunity nobody is expecting.